Okay, so welcome back, everybody. And now I'm really delighted to present our second speaker, Fiona Dunbar. Fiona, welcome. Great to have you here again with us. Fiona, like Sky, has been collaborating with us for a number of years now. I've lost count, and it's always a pleasure to work with her. Fiona is a very experienced teacher trainer, and her talk today, also aimed at primary, is called T.E.A.M. Together, Everyone Achieves More. So over to you, Fiona.
Thanks, Louise. Thank you. And yep, it's great to be here. It's always a pleasure to do one of these Teachers' Days and to have a chance to share ideas with everybody. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so as Louise said, today we're going to be talking about Together Everyone Achieves More. And a lot of the things I think will fit with what Sky's been talking about with his creativity ideas and so on, and just trying to look at maybe a few things that we can do in the classroom which might be a little bit different, and to keep our students motivated. So my first question, I'm going to start off with a question, which is, what's the situation just now? I've seen that there's lots of people here on the chat. I've seen that you're from all different areas in Spain and Portugal. But I wanted to know what you're doing at the moment. Are you teaching online, teaching hybrid, face-to-face, a mix?
Okay, the answers are coming in. We'll just give people a couple of seconds. So what's your situation at the moment? Teaching online, hybrid, teaching hybrid classes, teaching face-to-face with social distancing, or a mix? And it seems like there's a majority, it's around 85%, teaching face-to-face with social distancing. Yes.
Okay.
And then a small percentage, 14, a mix, followed by 5% teaching hybrid classes and 1% teaching online classes. So the majority teaching face-to-face with social distancing. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, well, that's interesting because that's actually what I'm doing at the moment. We've, over the course of this year, probably like everyone, we've done a little bit of everything. We've been in and out of different restrictions. So we've had online classes, hybrid, and at the moment, most of my groups, my primary groups, are face-to-face with social distancing. But hopefully, the ideas we're going to look at today, I think, are probably things that you can adapt for any of those different contexts. What we have realized, a friend of mine said a while ago when we were teaching online, said, it's just a different classroom, you know, and I think we've realized how adaptable we are and how adaptable our students are, and that really, with a bit of creative thinking, can probably turn things around. So what we're going to be looking at today is another one of the 21st century skills. Now, this is a quote which you've probably seen before, which says, we're currently preparing pupils for jobs and technologies that don't yet exist in order to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. And I think that's so much the situation at the moment, not only with our pandemic and everything, but the technology moves so fast, the world's changing so much, that we really kind of don't know. We can't imagine these students, these pupils who are in our classes now, aged 5, 6, up to maybe 11 or 12. Who knows what the world will be like? Who knows what skills they'll need in the future? And so I think that's the kind of basis that we need to be thinking about. The different learning skills, I'm sure you've seen this before. And as Louise mentioned, there is a handout. So if I go kind of quickly at the beginning here, looking at a few of the ideas, then don't worry, because all this information is in the handout and we can get onto the kind of practical ideas. But the 4 learning skills that we're talking about are critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And particularly today, we're going to be talking about collaborative learning. And so if we think about what exactly that is, I'm sure it's things that we're all doing already in the classroom, but collaborative learning is basically looking at developing these different skills with our pupils. So taking responsibility, listening respectfully and responding constructively, managing the sharing and working towards a resolution. And of course, these things I think are key for what we said at the beginning there, that who knows what the world will be like when these kids go out and study and get a job and develop and grow up. But if you think about these skills, these are things that can be applied to anything. And knowing how to deal with tasks and work with things is really the most useful thing that we can do with our pupils at the moment. So what does that mean in the classroom? What kind of things are we looking at? We're looking at, for example, pair work, working together with partners, real communication. And I think so much has changed in recent years with our materials, with our teaching, that there's so much more opportunity for real communication. But the more real communication we can have in the classroom, the better. Maybe working in a group, learning together and learning from each other. And so we're going to have a look then at some kind of practical ideas and activities that we can do in the classroom that might promote these ideas of collaborative learning. So I've got a question here for the chat. If you want to put your ideas into the chat and tell me what topics get your pupils talking. So Louise, do you want to kick off?
Yes, football. Surprise, surprise, football.
Really?
Yes, hobbies, video games, lots of video games coming up, animals, pets, TikTok has reappeared. Fortnite, is that that's a TV series, is it?
Yeah, no, Fortnite's a computer game.
Oh, right, this will show you how out of touch I am. Hobbies, yeah, loads of ideas. I'm just going down a little bit just to see if I've missed any. No.
Okay,
brilliant, thank you.
So we had lots of things there, and I think it all sounds like exactly the things that I'm hearing in the classroom. And I think what brings those topics together is that they're all really personalized. Kids want to talk about their lives. They don't want to talk about politics. They don't want to talk about other people's lives. They want to talk about them and what they do. So why do they want to talk about TikTok and Fortnite? Because that's what they do. That's their life outside of the classroom. And so we want to try to get them talking about these things. Now, I start pretty much every lesson, maybe from about 2nd or 3rd of primary up to 6th. Then I start every lesson with some kind of question activity in pairs. And this is just an example. This is one I did the other day with my 5th of primary class. And so we're talking about food, you know? And of course, the book was all about what's your favorite food? Let's make a recipe, etc. But we started then with some personalized question. And the thing about this activity, as you can see, they've got the gap fill that they need to put in the question words. And I think if we can then focus, if you think about often in the classroom, our pupils spend a lot of time answering questions and they don't spend so much time asking questions. And if they're going to work collaboratively, if they're going to develop that skill of collaboration, then they need to be able to ask questions. They need to be able to work with others and to find out what they need. And so I've just, rather than me putting the questions on the board, I now start off with some kind of gapped questions so that then they can get their ideas around the different question structures and the question words, you know? There's obviously lots of different ways you can do that. I think if you start, it's a couple of minutes at the beginning of the lesson, they talk to their partner, depending on what's happened, maybe I ask them to tell me something interesting from it. But I think just that kind of repetition of pair work questions is a great chance for them to practice that interaction, you know? And so then this is another one that we do quite often. And this activity is called the hot seat. Now, nobody actually has to sit in the seat, which is on fire, obviously. But what we do is we have one of the pupils in the class, it's their turn, they come and they're in the hot seat for the day. We choose a topic. So the topic could be, for example, computer games, we were saying before, or football, whatever it is. And the classmates have 2 minutes to ask as many questions as they can to whoever's in the hot seat. Now, some of my classes are bigger than others. So of course, if I've got a big group, then we can set this up that they do it in small groups. And the thing that you really see is as soon as you give them that 2 minute time limit, then of course they're desperately trying to ask the questions more quickly and to get as many. And sometimes in 2 minutes, we usually average, again, with the sort of 4th or 5th of primary, we usually average about 18 or 20 questions in 2 minutes. So that's a lot of practice there, you know, and they like the idea that it's their turn to be in the hot seat and so on. Other ways to get more questions going. This is an example of a visual from one of the new books. You might have seen, there's a lot of posters like this also around for the Cambridge Young Learner exams, if you prepare them. So pictures which have got a lot going on in them. And so to give some different practice of questions, then we look at this for a minute or two. There's different ways you can do it depending on your classroom. In my classroom, we have a digital whiteboard. And so I put this on the board and half of the students have their back to the board. Everybody looks at it for a minute, then half of them turn with their backs to the board. And the pupils who are looking at the board are asking questions to see how much they can remember. So, you know, what animal was there? What's the girl with the brown hair doing? There are 2 people playing a board game. What is it? Depending obviously on the level and on the language, there's lots of questions they can ask. And I think any kind of visual prompt can then give you an opportunity to use and to also to revise a lot of language that we've done. You know, often we're moving quickly through our books and so on. And then I heard somebody ask it in the chat before when they were talking to Sky about maybe the shyer students. And so here, as we can see, it's a kind of role play. So it's practicing questions and answers, but in a slightly different context. So in this one, you don't maybe need to share so much personal information. In my experience, most of my pupils, they have a lot of practice of asking and answering questions, and they tend to get over the shyness quite quickly about talking about themselves. It's different maybe in different age groups, but primary, usually the kids are keen to talk. But if not, then here they're doing a role play activity, which of course can then be developed into a play, a class production. If you are teaching online or doing something hybrid, then this is a great thing because they can record a video of themselves doing it. They can do it maybe in the online classroom, and it can develop into something a bit more kind of dramatic, shall we say, you know, some kind of class play. If you've got time and if you want to do that, I know everybody has different kind of situations of how many hours a week you have and different targets, you know. And so I've now got another question for you. Thinking, as I've seen from the beginning, most people are teaching with social distancing. So do you have the feeling that your pupils need to move more? I feel I need to move more. How do you feel, Louise? Are you stuck?
Yeah, well, yes, definitely need to move during the week. It's not a problem at the weekend. It's during the week. Yeah. You know? So answers are coming in. Great, thank you, people. So do you feel your pupils need to move more? And it seems like there's a majority of about 67% saying yes, and about 30-odd% saying sometimes. Okay, 65 yes, 35% sometimes. So okay. Majority
that's
yes.
That's interesting because nobody has said no. So that's interesting. That's a kind of yes and yes there, really, you know?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I think this is something I've really noticed since we've come, you know, obviously since we went online and hybrid and back in the classroom. We don't have that opportunity to maybe stand up and swap places or kind of move around the classroom as much as we did. Pretty much the kids come in, they have to stay in the same seat, can't really move too much for obvious, understandable reasons. But I've been trying to think of some ways to get a little bit more movement into the class without obviously breaking those distancing rules. And so one of the things we've been doing in all of my primary classes is that we have a magic word of the day. Now, for example, the magic word today could be sunny. Basically, I choose a different word every day for each group. I tell them at the beginning of the lesson, And when I say the magic word, everybody has to stand up. Okay, so I'll be talking about something and I'll say, oh, you know, so did you have a good weekend? What were you doing? The weather was really sunny, and everyone has to stand up. And the thing, I started doing this actually when I was doing some hybrid classes, and it was great because it was the same for the people in the class as for the people online. And it just gave them that kind of quick movement of standing up for a minute, not going anywhere, they're not touching anybody, but having a little word of the day has allowed me, I think, to have that kind of moment of movement all the time. And I choose a random word. I think this week I chose Easter because we were talking a bit about next week. And of course, they try to get me to say it more often so that they can stand up more. But that's one easy way. And then this is something I used to do this, interestingly, when you think back to before this distancing, quite often in our primary classes, wanted to get everyone to stop moving much more than we do now. And so I had a little chant, which I've done for years, where I would say, everybody look, everybody listen, everybody's ready, and everybody's sitting. We kind of like got settled into our seats or on the floor, or depending on what age they were and where we were, but it was a focusing thing. They had to look, listen, be ready, and be sitting. And of course, I don't really do that so much now because I might need to get them to look and listen, but I don't need to get them to sit down. And so what I did the other day was we were in the class, we were practicing talking about a picture. So we were talking about at the top, at the bottom, on the right, on the left, and in the middle. And so we did the couple of activities from the book, and we focused on which was which before they went to do the picture. But then everybody stood up, and basically it's kind of difficult for me to show you here on the camera, but everyone stood up, and in pairs, they had some actions to do. So they either had to say at the top, at the bottom, kneeling down, on the right, on the left, or in the middle. And for in the middle, they had to do the tree pose. So if you know yoga, most people know the tree where you have your leg up in a kind of triangle. Yeah. And so I've got them in pairs just to say to each other, at the top, at the bottom, in the middle. And of course they were constantly doing in the middle so that they would have to stand on one leg. It was a little bit of movement, and it was interesting because they were really practicing the language, but also focused on moving around. They just did it with a partner. And I think any kind of yoga activities are always quite interesting. You can do maybe animals with the younger kids, with first and second of primary. There are lots of different yoga poses. And actually, depending on your classroom, people tend to think you have to do yoga lying down, but you can probably do quite a lot in a chair or similar movements, similar kind of actions, which just gives a little bit of movement. And then this is a kind of very minimal movement thing that I've been doing for a while in all my classes, which is when we do any activities that are, for example, true or false, and we have to check the responses, then if it's true, we clap our hands, and if it's false, we click our fingers, okay? It's not much movement, but it's a little bit. It gets the oxygen flowing, and it also gives us a change of focus. So, Louise, I'm going to try that with you for a moment, okay? If it's true, okay, clap your hands. If it's false, click your fingers, okay? Okay. I'm going to tell you some things about me. You can decide if it's true or false. Okay, I live in Malaga. Excellent. I'm from the USA. False, very good. I have a cat. Exactly. Sometimes my cat appears in my webinar sessions, so hopefully she won't today. But yeah, so you get the idea, and it's just, but rather than kind of like true, false, yes, no, any other movement that kind of gets them doing that. And of course, if your kids are creative, which they are, as Sky was telling us, then you can come up with maybe even other different movements they can do there. Okay, so another poll. I'm keeping everybody busy today. How do you feel about projects? Love them? I'd like to do them, I don't have time. I'd like to do them, I don't know how, or I'm not a fan. How do we feel about projects in the primary class?
Okay, so the poll will appear now. We've got a couple of seconds to answer that. How do you feel about doing projects? And people are answering quickly. You've got 4 options. Seems like there's a majority, 44% saying I love them, followed by 38% I'd like to do them, but I don't have time, followed by 12% I'd like to do them, but don't know how. And finally, 5% I'm not a fan. So a majority do. But there are a number of people who feel that they'd like to do them, but they're lacking the time to fit them in.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I know that feeling for sure. Sometimes you look, especially, you know, you kind of look at your lovely Macmillan book and it's got fabulous big project in it. You think, I don't have time for that. But I've really decided in recent years that I try, if I can, to find the time, but if not, to do bits of the project. Gives lots of chance for collaboration, you know. So we're going to look just at a couple of typical projects here. This is one for second of primary, where the pupils work together in groups of 3, and they're going to design a treasure map and play a game. Now, obviously, that's a great collaborative activity, working together from the very beginning. They're finding out about things, using the internet, etc. Getting the language that they need to then make their map. And then here, when they plan and create the project, if you see here, it's reminding us about cooperative learning, that here they're listening to and respecting everyone's opinion. And I think that's the kind of thing that maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been so aware of the importance of that. But when we come back to our idea that we don't know what these guys are going to need in the future, we don't know what they're going to be doing, we've no idea what's up ahead, then I think, you know, learning to listen, learning to respect opinions, these are great skills to have. And if you can have them in a second language, then even better, you know. And so then, of course, they go on and present the project. This is another one which looks a bit more at first glance like something that the pupils do on their own. So they have to design an animal here. But then what happens is they have to write about the animal and so on. They make the picture, write about the animal. But then if we see this thing at the bottom, it says, tell your family about your amazing animal. And I've more and more over the years, I've tried to include things, connections with home into some of the things that we do in class. Because again, I think it gives that real life communication opportunity that, you know, maybe they do it in English, maybe they won't. But the fact that they can share something that they've done in English with the family is a great thing to do. And so I just wanted to show you this little video here, which is from High 5. It's for 5th of primary. Just going to watch a short clip for a minute about what they're doing.
Hi, welcome back to Channel 21. I'm Max.
And I'm Amy. It's the school talent day next week. We haven't prepared anything. What are we going to do, Max?
Everyone is going to sing or dance. I'd like to do something different and fun.
Okay, but what?
Well, maybe we can get some ideas in today's programme. It's about art. We're here at my dad's office to ask people some questions about this topic. Are you interested in art?
Yes, a bit. I like drawing cartoons a lot. I often drew comics when I was young.
Do you like art?
I'm not very good at art myself, but I love going to art galleries. I like sculptures.
Have you ever painted a portrait, Dad?
Yes, you know that I love painting. I've even done a painting of you.
Oh, Dad.
Okay, so obviously we've got the kid there a bit embarrassed about the dad's picture. But here the idea that I like is the the creating the questions and the going and asking someone else. Now, depending on your pupil's situation, it might be realistic to think that some of them can ask a question in English at home or outside. It might not, but what we've done sometimes in our school is that we get the pupils to prepare these questions, and then they go and ask other teachers, or they go and ask a class who's maybe a year older. We can go and ask those questions. Now, obviously, at the moment, we're not allowed to move, we can't mix around, but what we've been doing is recording the questions and then playing them to the other class. The class record the answers, and we get the information back to the kids. And that real interaction, it's such a great chance for them to actually ask a question to someone else and get some real life information. I think if we can think of ways to take it out of the classroom, even in this situation we're in, you know, maybe they're not traveling to London, but any way that we can get out of the classroom, I think is a great motivation, you know, and helps them to learn from others. Now, in this same activity here, they then go on to look at a couple of things that they could do for their task. And I just wanted to show you this one, which is a fabulous idea. Let's watch this just for a minute.
Here's another idea. These are chalks. The teachers say that we can draw on the playground. We could draw a big picture, like this. Everyone could help us. Or we could have a competition like this. Children can work in groups. They have 1 hour to finish their drawings. Let's hope that it doesn't rain.
Okay, so, I mean, in my school, we don't have a playground, but I think a lot of you guys might have a playground. And again, that collaborative task, they don't necessarily need to be there at the same time. They're outdoors, this is the perfect time of year to be outdoors in most places. And of course, we're trying to do things outside. And so maybe using the playground, using some chalk to do a drawing together is another chance for collaboration. Other things you could do together would be to get them to write something, which is what we're going to have a look at now. Now, you've got a very big playground. You can probably do this outside as well. The question is, what kind of writing do your pupils do? Now, this is going to vary, obviously, depending on what age they are. What kind of writing are they doing?
Okay,
what
so
comes into the chat.
Yes. So just put your answers in the chat in response to that question. What types of writing do your pupils do? So Irene is saying reviews, other people, descriptions, show and tell, projects. Begonia is saying projects as well. Let's see if there are any more. Okay. Write about themselves, riddles, retelling something.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Lovely.
Okay, so quite a range.
Yeah. So lots of different things. Now, this is just a couple of things I've been doing with my pupils. This is one of my top favorite activities ever to do, is a name poem, where there's different ways you can do it. So if you look at this one, we've taken the name, and then we've thought of a word for each letter of the name and made it into a sentence. But what I liked about this one, to make it more collaborative, is that you get your name and you give it to someone else. So they're writing about you, and they're trying to write things that they think are true about you, which is also a great thing for kind of getting our pupils to know more about one another and to maybe have a bit more empathy with one another, which is part of collaborative learning. So for Ruben, for example, then James had to think of a word for each of the letters, but then he also had to think about what might be true about Ruben. He thinks he likes rabbits, he thinks he's probably got an umbrella, he likes balls, he likes eggs, and he's definitely got a nose. And so that's a nice kind of opportunity to do some slightly different. You can do that obviously from first of primary. Once they can more or less write with a lot of help from the teacher, then we can be doing this with them there. And there's different ways you could do it, but then, you know, make it into a sentence or whatever. But these name poems, there's loads of stuff you can do with that. And then this is a slightly more kind of complex poem here, which is about haikus. And so, of course, they start off with an example. We get some lovely language to include in it. But then what's happening here is to actually plan and write the poem. They're doing it together. And I think poems are a really kind of easy type of writing to do collaboratively, because if you've got the language, you can work together to actually create the sentences. You know, it's maybe easier than a story or a description or something else. And of course, then it's a great opportunity for practicing pronunciation and word stress as well. And so then the last thing here I wanted to look at for writing, this is just an example of an informal letter, but it could just as easily be the things that you were saying before, a description or a story. And what we do is we get the pupils, we look at the type of writing we're going to do, we do the planning, etc., get organized. Then when we start to write the letter, after a few minutes, I say, stop, everybody stop, put down pens and pencils down, and then swap with another partner, and we have to pick up and continue the partner's letters, okay? You can do it with letters, with stories, with reviews, anything. And it really helps those higher levels with kind of organization and cohesion. But even for the lower levels, then it helps also for them to see what someone else has written, and they're obviously getting a bit of different input there than just what they would have written themselves. Now, we can't always swap the papers around at the moment with our situation. And so we've started doing a similar thing on Padlet, which I think people might already know about. If you don't, then have a look for Padlet, and it's an online place that you can do writing and add to what other people have written. I'm sure there are other platforms similar. And finally, if you're writing letters, why not get some pen pals? If there's any opportunity to set up with another school somewhere, even another school in the same city, but a chance for pupils to write to one another is always a great chance to do that, you know? And so we're going to finish there. We're going to go to the questions. If anyone has any questions, then send them in the chat. I'd love to hear them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Fiona. That was great. Lots of really good ideas there, quite a variety. And yes, if anybody has any questions or any comments, I've just put a link to Padlet there in the chat box.
Brilliant.
Yes, it's a really useful tool, and one that I'm sure that a lot of people probably do know about. There are other tools as well, other apps, but in the present circumstances where we have social distancing, tools like this have come in very handy. Maria Jose, thank you. She says, good ideas. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay. I think what was interesting was the range of ideas as well for the range of primary from 1 to 6. And adapting, the adaptation, given the present circumstances. Amazing. Thank you from Esther. Thank you, Esther, for joining us, and Raquel as well. Dolores says, thank you for the interesting ideas. Michaela says, very clear. Fantastic. Angela, thanks a lot. So yes, just checking to see if, somebody says that they'll put them into practice ASAP.
Brilliant.
So that's a good sign.
That's excellent.
Just check if there are any questions. Great. Yeah, fantastic. Very interesting. Wonderful. Yeah, so all really positive comments. And I also like the idea of the projects, and maybe the idea of a mini project rather than a one great big project that you're working towards a final result, but something that's more manageable.
Exactly. Either that, or even to do a longer project but spread it out.
Spread it out. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Projects. If Anna, I think you're referring from high 5 for level 6. There are projects in there as well, yes.
Yeah.
And question from Josefina Merino. I'd like to know if you speak any Spanish in your classes.
I don't. No, I don't.
No.
And I know it's a controversial topic. I'm not anti-Spanish at all. But personally, particularly, I teach all different ages. I teach from infants. I teach in academies, so from infants to adults. And I think if it is possible to explain yourself, really, it's not easy, but it's possible to explain yourself in English. And for me, it's an opportunity for them, for their listening and for their chance to kind of be exposed to the language. It gives them a lot of confidence also. I think primary, they get very used to you speaking in English, and then I think they're very comfortable with it. The more it happens, the more comfortable they are. So personally, I don't.
Oh, Michael is asking, what do you think about projects? How do you feel about projects?
Sometimes I feel like I don't have time, but more and more I'm trying to find time, and a bit like you suggested there, Louise, I try to maybe do a little mini project, or what we quite often do is have an ongoing project over the year. So depends on the group. If you know your group and you know there's something they're interested in, then to kind of build something up, maybe in a book form or a poster, or online. Of course, there's so many places now that you can build up. If you've got any kind of online, like a wiki or a Moodle or an online area that the kids can add things. So maybe once a month we add different things to it. I like it, and I do understand that time is short and it's difficult to fit everything in, but I do like it. And when I take the time and kind of find that space for it, then I think the kids really enjoy it. It's a different thing to do. It's a different opportunity to use the language, you know.
Fantastic. Yes, no, absolutely. And it's how you manage it and what your goal is. Marta Castro, I think it was, put a comment in the chat box to say that she thinks task-based learning, for example, could be a good alternative to doing projects or another way. No.
Yeah. I was looking actually at task-based learning and problem-based learning, but of course it's such a short session that you can fit everything in. But absolutely, task-based learning and problem-based learning are fabulous chances for collaborative skills development, definitely.
Exactly. So that's great. Thank you so much, Fiona. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for sharing these ideas that you as a teacher have put into practice. And I think this is a wonderful forum for us all, for us, for the teachers who have joined us here today to share our ideas. So it's been wonderful. Thank you so much, Fiona. Thank you to Gorka, who's there in the background doing all the technical stuff, who has been absolutely wonderful. Oh my God, Gorka, you've changed your appearance. Who are you? What are you? Are you a human? Are you an animal? He's gone. Okay. So thank you to everybody out there. Thank you for participating in this event, in the chat, in the poll. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope to see you again sooner rather than later. And I wish you all the very best for the rest of the course, and hope you have a lovely and happy and relaxing Easter when it comes around shortly. So that's all from us.